Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of looking at some of my favorite baseball cards. This is Red of Half Century Collecting Sports Cards. These were the cards we showed last week in my favorite 400 countdown, and we are currently going to show a 1941 play ball card of Chuck Klein. This is one of my favorite sets, officially a pre-war set, even though the war, World War II, that has been going on pretty strong for a couple of years. Just the U.S. wasn't involved at that time. Nazi Germany was in, there's a bunch of countries by then: Poland, Denmark, Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg, I think even Yugoslavia, Italy and Japan were fighting with Germany at that time. And then, as we know, on December 7th in that year, which is after this set was produced, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, and the U.S. did get involved. But at this time, for the U.S., this is a pre-war set. Now, Chuck Klein is one of those players in the Hall of Fame based on early career, super 5-year run. It actually reminds me a lot of a recent inductee into the Hall of Fame who had a real good little run where he was one of the best players in the major leagues for a few years. Klein was a Philadelphia Philly, unlike Parker was a Pirate, but he led the league in home runs. Klein did 4 out of those 5 really strong early seasons, and even the year that he didn't lead the league in homers, which was 1930, he broke records, including for extra base hits in a season. He had 107 extra base hits in one season, 59 doubles, 8 triples, 40 homers, and it's a record that still stands, although this guy, with a little help of some juice, did tie Mr. Klein. Now, in 1932, 2 years later, Klein won the MVP when he led the league in both home runs and stolen bases. Only player in over 100 years to do something like that. In 33, he won the Triple Crown, but that year did not win the MVP. He finished second. And a pitcher, Carl Hubble, came in first that season for the Giants. In 31, he was second in MVP, and then that 1930 season we were talking about with all those extra base hits, where he also had 170 ribbies, hit 386. That year he was 4th in MVP voting. Now, Klein had a really good outfield arm. Actually had 44 assists in one season. But other than his arm, he wasn't necessarily that good of a right fielder. So, again, comparisons to Mr. Parker. And then his years after that, terrific 5-year run, he was a pretty good player, but just not a great player. He played 17 total years, so a longer career, and that also reminds me of Parker. He finished, like Parker, with over 2,000 hits in his career, 300 home runs, and over 40 WAR at 46.6. And here is the back of that play ball card. He ended with a 320 career average. This is almost the end of his career here, this 41 card, and he's back to the Phillies. And they talk about, at that time, 299 homers, 324 lifetime average. So a good player. And a pretty cool looking card. I like that smile. Good color on that card of Chuck Klein. All right, next card we are going to look at is a 1958 Roberto Clemente. And his normal card, you can see the white lettering there on the Pittsburgh Pirates, the yellow background, but the card that we're actually going to put on this list has yellow Pittsburgh Pirates, which I think almost stands out a little better with that yellow background. Cool looking card. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about Clemente because he's on this 400 list a bunch. But this is early in his career where he's showing stars, especially, or signs of becoming a star, especially defensively. You can see they talk about that on the back of his card there in that cartoon. Thrills the Pirate fans with his sensational catches in the outfield. Maybe the best right field arm of all time, Roberto Clemente. Okay. And next is, this is one of my favorite rookie cards of all time. And a shortstop that was just phenomenal. Phenomenal defensive shortstop. Luis Aparicio. And this is his 1956 card. Little Louis from Venezuela. He is currently the oldest living Hall of Famer. After Willie Mays died earlier this season, Aparicio currently at 90 years old. The oldest living Hall of Famer. And now I'm just going to pan over. I'm going to go over here. And when I was going to pick an Aparicio card, I was almost going to go with his 57. He's just got a lot of really cool looking cards. You can see he played a lot of years with the White Sox. They went to the Orioles, won that 66 World Series, back to the White Sox for a little bit, and then ending his career with the Boston Red Sox. But I went with this 56 card. Just, I know it just, is graded a 2, but I think as a lot of others have said, you can't go by the grade because the registration color on this card is phenomenal. Centering is right there. Maybe a little paper loss there under the hat. And a little spot right over here. You can see a little surface crease. Corners aren't bad, but those flaws that give it the 2. Look at the back of his card. Try to get rid of that glare, but awesome color on the back of the card. And this is where it talks about his fielding, even though he hasn't even played in the major leagues at this time yet, but it says he must have a magnet in his glove. A couple sensational minor league seasons. Like his father, Luis Aparicio played in the Venezuelan League and was a star. Aparicio was a great defensive shortstop. See, he made 44 errors, but as he got older, he actually didn't make that many errors to go along with all the great defensive plays that he made. Now I'm going to try to show the film quality at this stage. Obviously wasn't that great, but this is him in the field here, making a couple of plays. And this is when he's with the Orioles, so this is in the mid-60s, and the reason I know that's Boog Powell. And you can see that Orioles pitching, but some of the great in the hole, they said he was just a super acrobatic, great fielding shortstop. At the time of his retirement, there was actually only one player with more defensive WAR, and I know at that time that wasn't a stat, but Joe Tinker of the Cubs was the only player at that time who had a higher defensive WAR than Luis Aparicio. He teamed with this guy, Nellie Fox, one of the best double play combos of all time. And look at both these 56 cards of these guys with their in-action parts showing them making cool plays in the field. And that pair was number 1-2 in 1959 in MVP voting. Nellie Fox won the MVP. Aparicio was second. That was the year of the Go-Go Sox that they ended up going to the World Series. Unfortunately, they did lose to the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now, Ted Williams once said that Luis Aparicio was the best shortstop I ever saw, which I think says something. Williams was a pretty good knowledge on baseball. In his career, Aparicio, 10 years, he was an all-star, 9-time Gold Glover, had 2,677 even career hits, over 500 stolen bases. And in 18 seasons, he only played shortstop. He never played another position. He had 55.9 WAR in his career, and he still holds the American League record for most shortstop assists, putouts, and total chances. Luis Aparicio. All right, so we went to Aparicio, and now we're going to go to the shortstop who was like Aparicio, but probably even turned it up another notch from Aparicio. And this is Ozzie Smith. This is his 1979 rookie card. Kind of a cool card back with the Padres. Now, he, kind of like Aparicio, an outstanding fielder and could hit just enough. A decent, not great hitter. But Smith later in his career did win a Silver Slugger Award and hit that famous game-winning home run in Game 5 of the Championship Series in 1985 to catapult the Cardinals to the World Series against the Royals. Now, he'd come out with those high backflips, and then he'd make these acrobatic plays in the field. He was a guy who, the time he played, really was one of my favorites because shortstop was what I was playing then. And when I heard he was going to be at a card show down when I was in Iowa at the time, I went and met him and got his autograph. And that was somewhere around that time, that 87 to 89 era when I got that. I'm not a big autograph guy, but Ozzie Smith was one that I went and got. Also of note, Ozzie Smith in high school, he was a high school basketball teammate of Marcus Johnson, NBA All-Star, and he was a baseball high school teammate of another Hall of Famer, Eddie Murray. It had to be quite a high school baseball team. Now, he became, when he was with the Padres, wasn't necessarily somebody I paid a ton of attention to, but when he got traded, and that's his 82 Topps traded card, to the St. Louis Cardinals, who was a team that I really liked, and he unfortunately got traded for a guy who was, at the time, one of my favorite players, Gary Templeton, who got 100 hits from both the left and right side of the plate in one season. Great hitter, a great early career, but he was having some troubles with St. Louis management. Ozzie Smith was having some troubles with Padre management, especially in regards to pay. And Ozzie Smith's agent at the time actually put an ad in like the local newspapers saying star shortstop needs an extra job because pay isn't that great. And then Joan Kroc, the owner's wife, offered him a job as a gardener. After that, things kind of went sour, and they ended up making that trade. But as a Cardinal, he was definitely one of my favorite. Had 13 Gold Gloves, 15 All-Star appearances, and a career 77 WAR. And that was without being that much of an offensive player. Tells you something. All right, last card to look at today. One of the coolest pictures you're going to see on a baseball card. A 1952 Topps Warren Spahn. He's got so many cool cards, but this pose just strikes me with that background color. This one's pretty well centered. I know it's got a few creases there on the outside card, but I don't think it detracts from the beauty of this 52 card. Now, Spahn is one of the few major leaguers who had over 100 WAR in his career, and he actually got some of that. He wasn't over 100 just from the pitching side, but he hit so many career home runs. He hit 35 career home runs. So his offense, not that he had a lot, but that pushed him over that 100 mark. Now, this 1952 season was just one of 4 out of 17 seasons in a row here where he didn't win 20 games. It means he won 20, 13 out of 17 years. Just incredible. The 51 season pictured on the back here, he did win 20 games. It's one of the black print backs compared to the red, which in the early 52 series there are, you can go either way. I kind of like those black back ones. That 52 season, even though he didn't win 20 games, he was 14 and 19 that year, but he still had a 2.98 ERA and led the league for the 4th consecutive year in strikeouts. 350 career win guy, Warren Spahn. So that is it for today. These are the cards we featured with a look at last week's. Thanks for watching. We will hopefully see you again next week.